they totally use
It says collection of student work.
Okay, so we demonstrate we apply some logic here at the end.
No, I had so much junk food today.
All right. Does anybody need more time?
Say master's, she's so advanced. Except for the one where they.
Understand, Maddie.
Did you win this?
In the beaker. Serious question on how many two real pops are in here.
Ms. Walker, Ms. Van, do you need a little bit more
Oh,
time?
we're sorry.
Oh, no, you're not. All right. So now that we've taken a chance to look at every 4 samples of student work, let's start by discussing what does the student work demonstrate about his or her understanding of the task? Do we feel that, now that we've looked at the task, do we feel like all the students are understanding the concepts of what the task is requiring?
Some more so than others. Some kids were able to provide a detailed explanation into their thinking for each of the problems, where some kids were not able to go in depth. We saw, like student number 2, every time they did a problem, they were able to go into depth and provide a detailed explanation as to support their answer.
I was gonna say yes, but in the directions it says show or explain. Because I noticed that as well, no one else included an explanation, their work was just shown step by step. From what I remember of math.
I mean, they all
So it
came
was
to the right
4.
answer, they all came to the right
Yeah.
answer,
Yeah.
so they all got 199.
Yeah,
Not quite 200.
we should have asked that in the beginning for clarifying what's the correct answer.
That's
So
true,
she was-
Maya. You're right.
So that's where they performed well, they all got the right answer. Anything else that you guys noticed?
Because it's a partner task, it could be difficult to assess students' skill individually.
I agree.
Or someone had an idea, like if one student didn't understand the linear connection, the other student's like, oh, we can set up an equation, the other one's like, uh-huh. Then, like, they're not necessarily understanding, I mean, it's a classroom task, something like that makes sense for them to work together, but, it wouldn't be a true assessment of like whether all the students could meet these standards or not.
Are there any fundamental problems or common errors that you feel that students are making across all these sample tasks?
Most of them, with the exception of number 2, are not verbally explaining their rationale. They're just showing their math rationale. But that's, I looked in the standards and I couldn't really see anywhere that requires them to do that.
Yeah.
So.
And I was saying that earlier, I was like, oh, the English teacher needs
I know, I was
the
like,
words.
it's
I
all
want
words.
words.
I was like, I need to see their interpretation.
Yeah.
Because it says, I don't know if it says anything about using mathematical reasoning. Mathematical reasoning could be just showing all your
Yeah.
steps in the process,
It says
not
or.
necessarily.
It says or.
Yeah.
We noticed that too, and it says or.
But the last one does say to explain, period. It doesn't say show or explain, it says explain, and not everybody explains.
That's true.
I think everyone attempted to try to explain.
I like the
Yeah.
student that said it was gonna
Most of-
overflow.
yeah, they just-
Yeah.
I was like, I know somebody.
That does not make sense.
I was just like, something, what happened? Okay.
I'm wondering what their level of proficiency is with graphing, because most of them, are choosing to use Y and stuff like. They have a couple of points here where they could have, put on the coordinate plane and plot it, but none of them from the work that we saw, they attempted to do any graphing with this. So I'm wondering what their level of proficiency is, how comfortable they are with graphing on a problem like this.
So going a little bit back to the standard, I believe she said that she was trying to address, which was kind of being able to write an equation of a line and be able to interpret and analyze that equation of a line in context. Do we feel like all students met her target standard.
Yes.
Okay. Beautiful. Anything anybody would like to add to, talking about the student work? Lovely. All right, we are gonna move on to suggestions for improvement. So are there any modifications to the instructional context that might improve student performance? So is there anything to the task itself that we would like to improve, to kind of reach, again, we're trying to reach the target standards? Any way that we could have modified this task to change it, to meet the standards maybe a little bit more clearly?
I think that some of like the numbers for the marbles could have been taken away. Like for example, like every other one or whatever. So then the kids had to do that equation to see how many marbles, like solve for one for us.
Is that a different equation though?
No, they just
No.
have to solve for it.
Okay,
It'll just it'll be like a little bit of a deeper thinking, I don't know, like solving.
I was thinking too, you know how it said that they could choose whatever method they wanted? What if you made them use specific, like you have to use 3 different methods to solve this problem?
Or if you wanted to have them choose one, explain why they selected them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that.
Someone had multiple methods.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to see the literacy teacher, he wants to see show and explain a little bit more.
Yeah. Not
You
for
know,
all of
perhaps
them.
not for all of them,
Yeah.
but at least for some of them, because like that number 2, like where it was like, oh, this is why I'm using this formula. Now I'm gonna use this formula. Yeah.
So maybe kind of getting them to analyze it a little bit more and interpreting it, because if they all can get the slope, maybe pushing them to that higher level of proficiency of being able to interpret what does that slope mean.
Yeah, and why would I use that in this context?
Good.
Does that bump it to a 4 then, or no?
It's not extended. It's not
Okay,
extended.
okay, I'm just wondering. if
I think it would
it's
just
like
make it a stronger 3.
Yeah, it would make
Okay.
sense.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say, if they designed an application of said method, then that
Yeah.
could extend it to a 4. They could come up with another scenario.
It's like
Yeah.
day, if you wanted to make it a day 2 thing.
Like ice cream was in a
Kristen had brought up a valid point about assessing the ability level of, assessing the understanding of all the students. So like for question number 3 and number 5, I was thinking perhaps the students could have input their own numbers, like because they're working in a group, like, or you have 67 here. Maybe I chose 50 and you chose 85. And we could have, our numbers are different, and we're gonna, work it out to see if we truly understood it, because that would be your independent check, and I would also have my independent check too, so.
Like on the actual worksheet, like each
No,
person.
Each person, so each person would have their own worksheet.
And then
Oh,
they're
okay.
working, and you leave it blank, and you put your number in.
Even if no one works there.
And I chose 65, and just to do a check.
Do you feel like it's an exit slip
Definitely.
at the end of the
Yeah.
class period, like did you 100% get it?
Or number 6, because then, something that you left open, and you put their own number in, and.
Something that we don't see at all, I guess, would be the scoring guidelines or rubrics that go with it. So how are they gonna be assessed on this? I know it's an activity that they're working on, but one suggestion, it's for myself, could be to have kind of like a scoring guideline to go along with it. Just kind of saying like, it could have even gone back to the show and explain. Like if you answer this question correctly by showing, you will get 2 out of 5 points or 4 points. If you show and explain, you will receive full credit up to 5 points on this part of it. So kind of making it more clear to them what the expectations are for.
You can just put that underneath tasks,
Mm-hmm.
as a bold.
Yeah, you're right, that's a good suggestion. So then you don't have to create like this whole giant rubric for
Right.
this
A lot-
one activity that's
and a
really
lot-
just an
Yeah.
activity, kind of like a checklist,
A lot
like we
of
had
times
as
I
a
put that up in the
recommendation for
header.
another
I'll put
one.
like name on the left side, and then next to it, I'll put like points, and then just have like, it's like in the one, because you got all the space, like,
Yeah.
and that way it's clear.
Sure,
So I'm not writing like 10/10, I'm filling it in instead.
I think that's
And it'd
great.
be cool when they can look and say, okay, so I'm showing my work enough, I'm showing every step. but my explanation isn't where it needs to be, and then they know and you know, which is, well,
And I think it pushes, cause when I had experience with this, it pushes students who are such good doers. They can do all the math work, every math work that you ask them to do and go through all the processes. Processes. But I think most students would struggle with being able to communicate mathematically, so pushing them to force them to communicate mathematically and be able to explain their reasoning in the process, I think would make them a stronger math student.
I think make them a stronger student, period, because in all the diploma program classes, they have to justify everything that they do through writing.
let them be able to teach each other too.
Yeah.
Cause it's like so easy, just be like, okay, I did this, and like you just show them your answer. But if you can like actually teach another kid how to do it, that's like a whole other thing.
Did anyone mention making a graph yet? Like they could actually,
I think,
you know, we must have, I can imagine this in this discussion first.
Oh, yeah. I think those were beautiful suggestions, good job. We are now at the last step, which is to just debrief, and this is now where, Sophia, you get to actually talk. So the feature presenter is going to reflect on what she has heard us say. She may want to, I would just encourage you, Sophia, to talk about how you felt about the process, what suggestions maybe did you feel like you really liked. If you notice anything we said that you feel like you want to give clarity to, you're more than willing to do that at this time.
Sure. Okay, well, I'll start with the standards. I wasn't sure if you guys were saying that you thought all the standards in the UNIVAC were addressed in this activity, because they definitely were not. The standards that were addressed, that I was trying to address, were the ones you guys said for Common Core: interpret the function in terms of the context, calculate and interpret rate of change in the table, the create equations, I think you all mentioned that for the Common Core. For the college readiness, I wanted them to exhibit the knowledge of slope, rate of change, the slope from equation or a line. Somebody said interpret and use information from a graph. That was not my intention for them. They could make a graph.